What's up, crypto gang? Welcome back to another episode of Hack Crypto, where we hack our cryptocurrency education. If you guys are brand new here, we do a giveaway at the beginning of every single episode. And today's winner is Mikey Ice. Thanks so much for commenting on the previous video with your wallet address. If you guys do want a chance to win, like this video, comment something about the video with your wallet address, and do not forget to subscribe. On this special episode, I sit down with Rice Crypto. One of my favorite things about this channel is that I can bring in people with different beliefs. And one of the most important parts about conversations is that you have alternative perspectives when you're talking about things. And one of my favorite things about Rice Crypto is his background and his beliefs in volunteerism and anarchy. And that is not necessarily my beliefs whatsoever, but it's important to have conversations with everyone. And I think that it's important to have an opinion, no matter what the opinion is. If you're not just regurgitating things that you've read, you have an opinion, I respect that fully. Everybody should have an opinion about something. When you have an opinion about something that you believe in, I respect that to the fullest extent. I think that is what drives our society, and that is what we really need to emphasize a lot more of with coming generations. Everyone should have their own belief. Everyone should really emphasize, come up with their own thoughts, and think for themselves. And that's one of the reasons that I really respect Rice Crypto. And we sat down and decided to talk about what unemployment would look like if there was no government in place. Now, this is a good thought experiment, mainly because it's around the decentralized concept, where if 10 million people, like the current unemployment numbers are showing, go out of work, how do we support them as a society? And we come up with some pretty clever ideas. I did a tweet a couple of weeks ago now about what would happen. And it was really interesting that a lot of people suggested UBI and crowdfunding and things like that. So Rice and I sat down and went through some of the options. And then also at the end, there is a bonus that Rice talks about that's pretty hilarious that China was doing. And it's just a joke at the end, but definitely stick around to the end. The link to Rice's channel is below, so definitely go check that out. And without further ado, let's dive into my interview with Rice Crypto. What's up, guys? I am here with Rice, and I am Steve from Hack Crypto.
Yeah, man. Steve, I really appreciate, us doing this collaboration. We've talked about doing this. We both have our own YouTube channels. So we're going to put this collaboration effort on both of our channels. So if you're checking us out on one of the other person's channels, make sure you're checking out the other guy's channel. And if you like what we're doing, make sure you support us by subscribing, liking, commenting, and sharing, because all that kind of stuff helps these videos be seen in the YouTube algorithm.
That's right. That's right.
So how's it going, brother, man?
Going good. It's going good, man. Just quarantined here, and we both have our matching backgrounds.
Yeah.
Quarantining, floating in space together.
It felt appropriate.
Yeah, it felt appropriate.
It did.
So today we were talking a little bit before we wanted to sit down and go through the topic, but we decided upon that we were going to talk about the current unemployment, how it would operate without a central entity, like how it would operate without a government of sorts. And if you guys haven't checked out Rice's channel, he talks a lot about volunteerism and anarchy and things like that. So I was really curious to hear and go through some different ideas. And these are all kind of fun theoretical things that could, how the world could survive without a central government in the event of a spike in unemployment, like what we're seeing.
Like what we're seeing now. Yeah. And it's so you had a tweet, Steve, that you put up on March 28th, and I'll include a link for the tweet itself, where you posted a poll, and it said, without a government in place, we would help the 3.5 million newly unemployed citizens from the COVID-19 pandemic with. And you gave a couple different options. And that was peer-to-peer loans, crowdfund for each, universal basic income, and can't handle without government. And it the final results ended up being 45.9% in favor of universal basic income. But the crazy, scary thing about that is when you put that up on March 28th, you put 3.5 million. And obviously you were accurate then. That was completely accurate. But now today, on April the 3rd, we are seeing that those numbers have completely doubled, which is absolutely insane when you really get down and think about that, dude.
Yeah.
Like almost 7 million people that are unemployed right now.
Yeah, it's a scary thing. And
And that's only the people that can apply for unemployment. Because myself, because I've worked jobs where I wasn't necessarily getting a paycheck, I was getting paid under the table and wasn't going through all those certain procedures that I need to go through. So I don't have anything built up in an unemployment reservoir for me to be able to collect. Even with the extra money that they're offering, I still would not be able to file a claim. So I'm sure that there are millions of Americans that work in the service industry. And when I talk about working a job and not and getting paid under the table, that means that I wasn't paying taxes. And I have no problem saying that. You know, and I'll say this on the recording, and the IRS is more than welcome to come visit me. I would love to talk to the IRS. So that is an open invitation for the IRS to come visit Chris Rice Crypto, at my house in North Carolina, because I would like to speak with you anyways.
open.
But I mean, when you think about that logically, dude, like people who are working in the service industry that they're living day to day, paycheck to paycheck. And in our system of taxation, with taxation of labor, which ironically got passed around the same time as the Federal Reserve was created, kind of ironic, but we're paying somewhere between a quarter to a third of our earnings are going to taxes, which means that someone's earnings for like anywhere between 3 to 6 months of your earnings can be going to taxes. And if you're not earning a lot of money, that's a lot of money to go to the government. So I do not think it's a negative thing for people in the service industry to be taking advantage of getting paid under the table so they can keep all their wages and not be paying these taxes so that they can live a little bit better of a life, because living expenses are getting more expensive. The valuation of the dollar, it's going down. I mean, the purchasing power of the dollar since the Federal Reserve is coming into creation, I think is down. I think it's like 98%. It's lost purchasing power since like 1913. So I
Mm.
mean, when you put all that together, and now you know we're looking at these crazy unemployment numbers. It's scary, dude. You know, and what with your poll, what I thought was really cool, you know, it brought some human aspects into this, and I like the idea of taking government out of the equation, because with these bailouts that they're doing, are we going to have to pay this back? Is this going to be something that's going to indebt us further? Is this going to be something that we're just given as like something to help us get through? There's a lot of questions that are going on with government helping, and there's a lot of shady stuff happening with our government between the Federal Reserve, the Treasury, all the quantitative easing, the capital injections, bailing out different industries, continuing to bail out the same central banks and same banking institutions, finance institutions that have caused all these financial problems that we're going through.
Mhm.
You know, so the idea of bringing humanity back into it with this pandemic, what I would like to see most is us to keep our humanity, and for this situation to bring the best out of people. So the things that we're going to talk about now is an opportunity for humanity to step up. So I mean, we've got almost 7 million people that we know of on record that are unemployed and are going to need some help. So I mean, like, how are they going to get that help?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think a lot of creators in the crypto space specifically have made a lot of content recently. I made 2 videos about ways for unemployed people to find work, like gig work, whether it was crypto related. I think it was like 5 or 6 platforms to find gigs that pay in crypto. And then there was like a few platforms that just generate income through,
Like
paid
a
gigs.
passive income?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, no, and I love those videos. Those are great videos, man. I love your content.
Yeah, I feel like that's important in a time where there's a lot of uncertainty and people are freaked out. When you have 7 million individuals that are, completely, their world's been turned upside down in the past 30 days, it's kind of I just feel like it's important. So the first one, we Rice and I put together like a short little list that I did that tweet on, but we kind of dug a little bit deeper into it
Yeah.
to figure out to flush this concept out. So the first one is peer-to-peer loans, and there are, the DeFi concept is really interesting with these with DAI and things like that. But
A compound and stuff. Yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
and having I ran a startup in 2014 and we exited it. It got acquired and it was a peer-to-peer lending company, and banks shut us down 3 times. All of our accounts got shut down because it underpinned their loan ability, which is a huge vehicle for them to deploy debt. And
Would that have been something like Salt, like
yeah,
the Salt lending platform, something similar to that idea?
yeah, it was exactly, if you took, we were doing it in traditional sense, like with
Okay.
USD, and it was, raising money from wealthy individuals, giving them to students to go through school and learn programming and technical skills. They'd get a job, very low risk profiles, and the individuals were happy to give a loan just entirely peer to peer. We would just facilitate it, and this was in 2013. So crypto was around, and I loved Bitcoin at the time, and the peer to peer concept was beautiful.
Yeah.
And I think that in terms of how Salt works, how some of these other platforms out there, I think what we saw quickly in the traditional peer to peer was it started as mom and pop being able to go and give a loan, and quickly became banks just scraping all the very low risk loans. It was like maybe 6 months to a year of wild west, kind of like what crypto is right now,
Yeah.
in the P2P loan space, where people are like, oh, I could get 10% on my retirement by helping the student take care of their cost of school. I could just do real peer to peer, and then it became peer to bank quick once they saw the returns were there. So keeping that peer to peer is a struggle. And I think with unemployment, I think a lot of people in crypto would be more than happy to do something like peer-to-peer loans to support people that were in need, because it's mutually beneficial. Lending and credit is a fundamental part to finance, and it got a bad rap in crypto because of things like BitConnect, who used the word lending, which pissed me
Right.
off. Pissed me off so bad. I was like, how is this possible that one company is going to burn and stigmatize that word that's a fundamental like pillar to to
I
finance?
agree, but I think that might have been a little bit of what kind of hurt Salt lending, because they kind of launched, I think, while BitConnect was going
That's
on.
right.
Now you see something like Celsius,
Hmm.
which launched after and have maintained a good reputation and good standing in the community, and they've been successful. So
Good point.
I think it's very. I think that once you have enough time to have a little bit of dust kind of settle from the situation, it gives people a different perspective, especially when you got good people involved. And that's why I always encourage people, period, just to do your research about whatever it is you're looking into. If it's a cryptocurrency or a project, see who's involved in it, read the white paper, look at the technicals, make sure there's a use case. And these things are very important. Don't just accept what somebody says because somebody that you like or respect said it, because that doesn't mean it's true.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and
So
but the peer-to-peer lending thing, what I think is really cool about that, especially now, is the idea that we can do it in a trustless way, so that somebody can, and it's, you can also look at it as being kind of philanthropic, for somebody who's got wealth to be able to help somebody else who doesn't, who could profit off of their philanthropy work. But having a smart contract in place would protect that individual to make sure that there would be no default. And I think those kind of situations, I think DeFi is going to do a lot, especially if we see a collapse of our banking institution systems as we know it, and we start seeing a lot of these smaller banks start falling off, and then we just start having, more like almost like a nationalized banking system, and which is very quite possible with all these bailouts. You can start seeing all these small banks just go away, because
yeah,
I think, because we're now in Q2, and I don't know if the Q1 earnings have come out for banks. I'd really be interested in seeing, like, just a lot of global bank interest, like seeing like what Deutsche Bank's earnings were for Q1, and like JP Morgan and Goldman Sachs and things like that. Because I think a lot of banks A lot of these financial institutions are pretty damn insolvent.
Yeah, they're definitely hurting, and
And crypto peer-to-peer lending is a fantastic idea.
yeah, and that's a way where it brings it down to the people level. There is a uh, a fundamental learning from this experience where people need to take into account, and I think it helps the cryptocurrency space specifically, where you have this government figure, the president and the administration and everything, and everybody's realizing that they're not putting rules in place for the states specifically. Like what affects you immediately is where you are, like geographically, like in your state. So I think it's helping move towards the sovereignty feeling of
Mhm.
saying like, okay, these people up, in the White House and the government and everything like that, they're so disconnected from me that the people that are actually making the rules are like right here where I am. And I feel like that's one step closer to like a responsibility feel. Like I'm not going to wait for somebody to step in and help me out, other than the corporations that are getting these massive bailouts. I I definitely think if you haven't listened to it already, the Chamath and Pomp interview is fantastic. Whenever Chamath talks, I listen every word that he says. The guy is so
Papa's been killing it lately, man. He's been doing
yeah.
a lot of content.
Yeah, he has. He has. He's so in touch with the financial markets, and listening to him and Chamath go back and forth about like what will happen with Bitcoin, and just the overall situation of the markets and debt markets and things like that. He's a great guy to listen to. So if you guys haven't checked that out, definitely check that out because it's next level. He coined a new term in that interview where he said I had to re-billionize, because he said that the swings of him investing are so huge, up and down, that he had to re-billionize, which I thought was a ridiculous term and funny. But
Must be nice.
yeah, yeah, huge gains, huge losses, um, high risk is uh, is definitely there. So the next one, crowdfunding.
Crowdfunding.
I, I think
So,
that one is pretty good.
yeah, I have actually been seeing a few people that have been doing that. The unfortunate thing, I think with, because I haven't done any real true crowdfunding myself, but the way I understand it, I don't believe that all the funds that are collected go to the person, the beneficiary of the whole cause. Do you know if that's correct or not?
I think for certain platforms, it's like an all or nothing thing where if you
You got to
do,
raise a certain amount.
yeah, and then they're going to take their cut because they facilitated it, and doing payment processing and things like that. But I don't know what the cuts are. Kickstarter and Indiegogo, I think, are virtually the same with the all or nothing concept. But
Well, and tell me if you, I would like to see and I'm going to get into something that I'm slightly involved with and a project. It's called Kool-Aid, but it's a decentralized blockchain
good name.
application that, well, the ADE stands for, and it's COOLADE, and ADE stands for Autonomous Donation Engine.
Ah,
And essentially, it's a decentralized application that would allow for more transparency in the nonprofit sector because everything's blockchain based and open as far as decentralized. It would allow for people to be able, let's say in your community, you have some things that need to be done, like cleaning a river or going down the highway and picking up trash. And somebody who finds that this needs to be done, who wants to kind of reward somebody for doing it, can set a smart contract in place for someone to be able to complete local jobs around the area and essentially kind of get rewarded and get paid for doing good things. So like kind of like making good deeds and stuff like that to help the local area kind of be like a gig environment type of gig economy,
nice.
along with the nonprofit and a couple other different variations. But are you familiar with any other decentralized? Because this hasn't launched yet. It's I'm trying to help get this thing built. I'm working as an advisor with a good friend of mine who's working on this, and Nexus blockchain is involved. There might be some things that redundancies with Komodo with their delayed proof of stake
Hmm.
as far as how they do their snapshots in the Bitcoin blockchain and snapshots inside of the Komodo blockchain, which go, it's a pretty interesting idea. If you're not familiar with it, you should look into it. But
Cool.
are you familiar with any type of decentralized kind of donation platforms that are doing anything that would help like crowdfunding in a cryptocurrency stablecoin type situation that the beneficiary would get whatever's collected, versus all or nothing. And then if the all is collected, then nobody gets a cut either,
Um,
or a very extremely small percentage of a cut. Just something that would be giving the majority of these funds to the person who they're supposed to go to. That would be my biggest concern with something like that.
yeah, the only one that I can think of is it's called Giving, I think Giving Block. And there was, yeah, I think they've been around for a while, but the Giving Block was like an attempt at like raising crypto. I don't think it's a decentralized way of doing it. I think it's sort of like um, a crypto version of a GoFundMe. And
Right, like a centralized version of
yeah, yeah,
GoFundMe using
yeah.
blockchain and crypto. Okay.
I'm not familiar with like an actual DeFi way of doing it, but the Kool-Aid concept sounds great. And
Yeah, I'd love to introduce you to the dude. I did do an interview. It's a guy named Eric Sullivan. Now getting in back into this kind of stuff, what I've noticed, I had some neighbors, and somebody came and dropped off one of my neighbors some food as a younger guy, and he had some bread and toilet paper. And I was like, well, hey, where'd you get that bread, man? Where'd you get that toilet paper? Because it seems to be a hot commodity right now. And so we got to talking, and he was taking an opportunity to go out and pick up things for people that he was trying to look out for. I would say this guy's maybe like 22 or 23, and
Oh
it
wow.
sounded like he had wealthy parents, and his parents went to Walmart and purchased a bunch of gift cards, and he gave them to their son and said, "Give these to your friends because we know a lot of your friends work at restaurants, and give them to people that you think need them so they can go buy some stuff that they need."
Nice.
So I am seeing a lot more right now humanitarian effort. I mean, I'm hearing a lot of selfish people too. Like the people who are going to the grocery store who are trying to pick up, way more toilet paper than they actually need, trying to stock up on way more food than they need. Because really, you only need max like 6 months worth of food for yourself. I mean, you don't need to be stockpiling so much food. I mean, it gets to the point that it is considered hoarding.
Yeah.
And I think that you are seeing a lot of good things come about. I've been hearing a lot of people right now, since they're sitting at home, and some people who are trying to do things to help the local community in some volunteer type fashion, whether that is going someplace and doing something physically in a social distancing manner, or whether it's contributing something on social media, or helping out with telephones, like answering calls and things. I've been seeing a lot of people trying to donate their time to help causes and things like that, and local people in their areas. And I think that's another thing that people can consider.
Yeah.
Um,
Love that.
but I think we're going to see a lot of people, especially if this stuff gets a lot worse, man. We're going to see a lot of people pull together and really be helping people out. It's just if we have, this is the only problem with something like this. What if everybody has a GoFundMe?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then how does who funds the GoFundMe then? If everybody's asking, if you keep passing around the same dollar, so it's like, and that goes into some of the other areas, that some of the other possibilities that, we had talked about.
Hmm.
So what was the next thing on our list, or did you want to
It's a
comment
good,
more?
it's a good, that's a good, great segue. You brought up something that was really interesting to me, and I don't know if you've done research on it or it was just sort of something you were thinking about at the moment, but the sub communities that are based on the barter system. So if the unemployment number, goes to 20%, 30%, and there isn't a centralized authority like a government helping support those people, and it's non-existent, these sub communities are on the barter system and they operate in every state. So you lose, let's say, your income, your main source of income, you move to this subcommittee and you are on the barter system then. Like you pretty much just step away from the the system that you are not participating in because you file for unemployment with, I guess, the community. You say like, hey, in the state, I'm not working, I need to go to the barter system in the sub community. I think that's it's a thought-provoking idea. Did you hear about that before we had talked? Is that like a
Yeah, there's these people called Native Americans.
these people, huh?
I'm actually partially Native American, and I think community is going to be a big thing, man. People pulling together their resources, people trading things they have excess of for things that they need. I mean, that's how it used to be back in the day. When you had a farmer, you had somebody who had a lot of chickens, you had somebody who had a lot of cows. So you have one dude who's got a lot of eggs, you got one dude who's got a lot of milk. Well, what are you going to do with a bunch of eggs, and what are you going to do with a bunch of milk? You could take some of your milk and trade it for eggs. So that concept, I think, is going to come back, especially if things start to get worse. That's why I tell people, aside from things like cryptocurrency and silver and gold, as far as trying to preserve your wealth, you can also look into bartering items, things like tobacco, alcohol, toilet paper. These are things that people are going to use. Marijuana. I smoke marijuana. I'm going to want marijuana. So there are things that people can do to trade things, whether it's labor, because I wouldn't, if I'm hungry and there's some farmer who's willing to let me come work on his land to get some food, and that's my only choice of getting food, then I have no problem trading my time and my labor to get some food. And then I've talked a lot about community farming. I've interviewed Lynette Zhang from ITM Trading, and she's really big on community. She lives in Arizona. She took her, like where I was at the Phoenix area, she took her swimming pool and filled it in with dirt and started a garden. And she's doing community, like she's trying to do like a big, huge garden, take care of herself. She's encouraging other people in the community to do it. She gives food away to her neighbors when she has excess of stuff, because you can't eat so many vegetables. Now, while we're in this situation like this now, like even while we're social distancing, like where I live, I want to talk to some of my neighbors. There's a big backyard and a house right behind me. I was going to talk to the people at the house. Of course, keep social distancing. You can communicate with people, stay 6 feet away, and be like, hey, I see you got some land in the back of your house you're not doing anything with. What would you think about the idea of the residents of this apartment building and the residents of your house teaming up together and working that land and planting some crops, some produce, so we can like grow some vegetables together? And let's just say you have 10 people. You can have 5 groups of 2. You can have 3 groups of 3 with 1 extra person, where everybody's out there working 6 feet apart from each other, tilling the land, planting crops and produce, because it's the beginning of spring.
Mm-hmm.
It's a perfect time. If we're looking at the possibility of a shortage of food and the supply chain possibly breaking down, and I'm not saying this as fear porn, I'm just saying this is to be a realist and to think clearly and rationally and be prepared for these things, because a lot of things seem to be a possibility. So I think for people to be prepared for these possibilities is the best thing that we can do. Um, and I think that pulling together our resources, working together, and bartering, I think is just going to be, if I would love to just be like, what, everybody just say, the problem is money. So we're just going to get rid of it. We're just going to all opt out. And let's see if I can reach this real quick. Hold on a sec. When I saw you in Miami,
Mm-hmm.
I caught up with Bad Crypto guys.
Yeah.
Travis Wright was giving out these I'm going to show you. Now, they used to use these things as a form of currency. Okay. I would love to bring these back. Okay. Do you see that little shell?
Oh yeah, the seashell standard. I remember studying that in
Okay.
school.
Um, I want to bring seashells back.
Yeah.
I would like to just start trading things that we need and using these. Let's go back to the old system.
Yeah, the seashell system. I, I I love
Shout
the
out to Travis Wright.
yeah, shout out to Travis, right? I think the bartering concept of having it as a community that exists for I don't know if it's something that can act as a safety net. I like that. I think that that really, because if everybody in the entire country were to flip their community into this system, it would take
Or at
like,
least allow it for the people who need it. You know, and if you want to call it a black market, a free market, that's kind of what, but just allow it to happen, because it's like a swap meet.
yeah, swap meet. That's right. That's
And
right.
people do swap meets. They go, and it's like a yard sale where nothing really costs anything, but in order for you to get something that you want, you got to trade something that you don't want for something that you want.
Yeah,
And
and
it's got to be something that the other person accepts as something that they're willing to take for a trade.
that's right. That's pretty much because the reason that money was invented, like it was
Yeah.
the barter system, was like I'm a carpenter, you're a baker, and then there's a butcher, and we want to exchange goods, but it's someone else doesn't want someone else's goods, and someone else values it. So it money came in when there was an unequal distribution across those three people.
And that's where the shells come into play.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that the concept of sound money um, is a beautiful thing in that, fixed supply, and it'll be interesting to see how things play out over the next three months or so post halving, and once people start really doing more research as they've seen the government kind of struggle, or not kind of, they are struggling with what's going on,
Very much so.
and it's uh, it's very much. I don't want to say debasement, just because I feel like that word's a pretty dangerous word, but at the same time, it's possible, and exploring all possibilities like hyperinflation and things like that is important, but a lot of people have a lot of negative things right now. So
Yeah. Well, you study economics, and you look into what's going on with the financial system. If you look at Japan as an example,
mhm.
Japan, when a lot of other countries were printing up a lot of money, Japan did the same thing, but they decided to print up a lot more. And what that essentially did was cause not hyperinflation, but just a lot of inflation. So I'm not exactly sure of the currency exchange, but I think it's something to like 100 to 1 for the US dollar, for like 100 yen to $1, if I'm not mistaken. It's probably off, but it used to be that 1 yen was equal to 1 ounce of silver, which
Yeah.
that's crazy to think about. So now to buy something in Japan, you're paying like tens of thousands of yen for something that's not really an expensive item, like maybe a DVD or something
Mhm.
like that. It's kind of crazy to think about that. And then because of the fact that with this stimulus bill, I mean, a lot of people are talking about the $2 million in the stimulus bill, but this stimulus bill was over $2 trillion, 2 trillion, but it was actually over $6 trillion, the actual bill itself. And I think it's like over four or around 4 trillion that has been designated to the Federal Reserve and the Treasury, which is just going to be for the quantitative QE infinity. And what they're going to be doing is putting more physical dollars and digits in the system than we've ever put at any one period of time, which is going to start that more of an inflationary period. But because we are the world reserve currency, I don't know. And I've been asking a lot of people this. I've been having a lot of my content has been more about economics.
Hmm.
What do you see happening? What do you see taking place? And just trying to get other people's opinions, because we're in no man's land territory right now. We
Yeah.
really are. But we can see we're at an end. We're
Yeah.
at an end point now. Whether it should have ended in 2008, they printed their way to a safer place. Now it's all coming back. They're trying to print their way out of it. And if they're able to successfully do this on a short-term basis, then all they're really going to be doing is putting a bubble inside of a bubble. And when that bubble pops, that double bubble, it's really not going to be pretty
The double bubble.
at all. The double bubble pop.
The double bubble pop. Yeah, in terms of what I see happening, I've shared a few times in that we will have to shift to a new standard, like a back to a gold standard of some kind, just because
But we
that gives.
couldn't do that we cannot do that with the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve would have to be ended at that point. Taxation of labor would have to stop. The IRS would become non-existent. We would then nationalize our currency through the Treasury. Whether it's fractionally backed or fully backed, it would be a lot better than the situation that we're currently in. I agree.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely going to be some carnage for sure in the system, but in terms of how to actually save a somewhat of a national currency, having that base in there, like a base value, to back like a digital dollar of some percentage, whether it's digital gold or your physical gold concept that I don't know if that's even worth 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 adding in there, but I know that those two are from a traditional economics concept. That's how we could rebuild, is
We could.
applying a base to at least protect
We could.
the
And
bottom.
I've been trying to stay open-minded to everything that's going on, because the timing of this virus is very suspicious, and it's being used as a scapegoat for our financial collapse when the system was already in a collapse as it was. I mean, if you look at what happened last year, the inverted yield curve took place. Every single time that's taken place, it's pointed towards a recession at the very minimum. It's never been off. Then we started seeing the repo markets failing and the Federal Reserve and other central banks getting involved in capital injections in the system and just propping the stock markets up, just pumping the stock market up, make it look like everybody's happy and everything's good and there's no problems. And I think we even hit all-time highs in February in the stock markets. And then
Yeah,
this
it's
virus,
like a
then this
sheer
virus
drop.
that just came out of nowhere. But the system should have crashed in 2008, and the beginning of the collapse was taking place last year. I mean, it's actually been beginning since 2009, but the real evidence of the cracks of the system were coming through last year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have this convenience of this virus, and that's a completely different deal. But now, if you subscribe to any of the QAnon beliefs, and I'm not a QAnon person, but I do stay open-minded to a lot of different scenarios and possibilities. So I try to stay educated, especially to outside the box thinkers. And if any of the stuff that they're saying in the QAnon community is true, um, today being April 3rd, some stuff's supposed to happen between April 1st and April 10th, and possibly even a blackout period of internet, television. I'm not sure. These are all speculative in the conspiracy realm, but the idea would be that a bunch of people would be arrested, and in addition to that, the Federal Reserve would be ended, the IRS would be killed, and we would nationalize our currency through the Treasury. And there's a lot of signs that are pointing towards that, especially if you look towards legislation. You look at who's being brought in to work at the Treasury, who runs the Treasury, his background. It just really seems like we're possibly heading in that direction. And I mean, maybe it's just me with my wishful thinking of wanting to see the Federal Reserve end. But that would be, to me, in my opinion, if we don't see the Federal Reserve end and us nationalize our currency through the Treasury and back it by precious metals, whether fully or fractionally, if we continue down the same course with the Federal Reserve in charge, we are going to become in more debt than we've ever been. And this debt-based system is just going to just get sickening. And the Federal Reserve and central banks are going to become the buyers and lenders of last resort. And they're going to own all governments and all industries and all of everything. Is that what you want? I mean, do I sound crazy saying that? Or I feel like there's only two choices right now. It's one of the two.
Well,
As
I
far
think
as keeping the system intact using money or currency.
well, yeah, and what you've described is monopolizing the currency for the nation. Like if just one entity, like the Treasury, can prints and controls or does whatever with any part of the currency, that's a monopoly. Which I think in the terms of who controls the currency, it would be dangerous as well when there's not separate parties, at least some sort of checks and balances between the two. And I have seen, because I know a lot of these Q people follow Bitcoin Ben, and me and Ben are friends,
I'm
and
friends with Ben too, but
yeah,
Ben's in a weird place right now.
yeah, yeah. I mean the
I've been
people,
trying to talk to Ben. I can't even get Ben. If you're watching this, hit me up, dude. I need to talk to you because I'm worried. I love
yeah,
you, dude.
there's some. I mean, I've messaged back and forth on Twitter, and there's a lot of people that follow him that are very aggressive in terms of their beliefs. And
Those Q people are very, very, very strong in their belief system and letting everybody know about it. They fully trust the plan.
yeah, and
And
I'm
and
a
I'm like, don't trust, verify. And there's nothing about Q that you can really verify right now.
yeah, and I'm of the belief that I never want to press beliefs on anyone. I don't want to bash anybody else's beliefs. I think you're the same way, and most people are. But when people are very like aggressive and they're trying to change your belief system, I think that's when you cross this weird chasm of like
You're
fun and educating to like
disrespect,
yeah, to just disrespect.
violating my rights.
Yeah,
You
it's a
know, like if we get if I'm having this, and I started doing this yesterday on Twitter with somebody who I've got a lot of love for, a guy named Juan Galt. He sadly though is a Bitcoin maximalist, and he has a certain belief system that I disagree with, and we were having a really nice conversation that was like more of a debate, and I just kept seeing that we were just going to just keep debating each other, and it really wasn't going to go anywhere. And I just said, dude, I got love for you, but I'm going to have to say that I'm going to have to agree to disagree with you and just like leave it alone, because
mm-hmm.
now he could have chosen to keep trying to push his beliefs and his thought system on me. Didn't, because he's a voluntarist as well. So he respected that, but it's the people who take it further and no, 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 like, no, you got to listen to me. Like, people really need to be more respectful of other people. If somebody doesn't want to hear something, or if somebody doesn't show interest in what you're saying, then you really should take that as a hint
Yeah.
and not be some pompous prick and think that what you have to say is so important that I have to listen.
That's right. That's exactly right. Well said. Well said.
Thank you.
And in terms of the topic that we were talking about, we covered peer-to-peer loans, we covered the crowdfunding slash kind of DeFi GoFundMe concept. We covered the subcommittee or communities that would be on the barter
Bartering system.
system. And the last one, we skimmed over UBI, but the last one you brought up right before the interview, and I just wanted you to share the Ponzi concept that happened in China.
Okay, so and I was like really just joking about it, but it does add a little bit of comedy relief to the whole situation. I was mentioning, because we're thinking about possibilities of ways that we can keep ourselves with some income coming in, and multi-level marketing is always a good way to earn an income, but it's not always uh, a good way of doing things. It's not always ethical. But I was mentioning Cloud Token and Plus Token, which were Ponzi schemes that started in China, And a lot of these people in China are very aware of what these things are as they're getting into it, but they still invest in these things. Actually, when you mentioned BitConnect, I think Plus token has ended up becoming a much larger, have actually received more money than what BitConnect had received.
Yeah, they were
So
huge. Both of
yeah,
those.
the Plus
Huge.
token has probably been one of the, aside from that one coin or whatever it was called,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
aside from that, I think as far as an MLM scam, I think that Plus Token might actually in the cryptocurrency space have, and because they still have a crap ton of Ethereum and Bitcoin that they've been dumping off on the market.
Mm.
But the crazy concept about that is the people in China knowing that this is a Ponzi scheme, that knowing that this is like a, a pyramid system that eventually the bottom falls out on, somebody gets screwed, but they all still willingly do this. So it's like, should we as Americans start using these multi-level marketing and just like rat race this thing until like somebody loses, because that's how it works, and we're all just going to try to benefit as much as we can until somebody loses? You know, it's awful to think about.
It's a good
But
it's a good comedic relief. I like it.
yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, but people don't take anything that I'm saying about that seriously at all. Like, I do not want to see anybody pushing a Ponzi scheme. Now, I mean, there are legitimate programs out there that have a multi-level marketing aspect. That if that's your thing and you like network marketing, just make sure that you're researching the companies that you're trying to promote, because ultimately, if you promote a company that is detrimental and hurts others, that affects you and it looks bad on you. And if you're somebody who just keeps promoting the next big Ponzi, and all you're doing is just um, taking advantage of other people, and
Yeah.
it's not a good thing to do. And I think right now people need to be the change that they want to see in this world
Hmm.
so much more than ever. You know, that's why I bring up community. And then the other funny thing I thought about was all of the entire world somehow going up to all the rich people and forcing all the 1% wealthy people to give up 2% of their wealth and take 2% of the wealth from people like Bill Gates and all these different Saudi princes and George Soros and all these different rich people. Just take 2% of each person's wealth, put it in a pool, and distribute it to all of us other poor people. Because there's so much money that if you think about like how much this 1% of wealth has compared to the rest of the world, it's not cool at all. Especially when you think about the like somebody having so much money that they can't even spend it all. But you got all these people around the world that are hungry and homeless. So, like, it's not my right to say that these people, that we should go and kill these people and all take their money, because that's completely unethical and goes against my voluntarist beliefs. But if there was a way to Robin Hood this situation, I would love to do something like that. Just take a small portion of that wealth. It's
Hmm.
it's almost like a like a Robin Hood robbery. Like, literally, like, hey, I'm robbing you,
Yeah,
but I'm not. I'm only taking a small portion of your money, so just give it to me.
it's a wealth tax for sure is what you're talking about in a way.
So yeah, let's wealth tax the wealthy and
Yeah.
redistribute it to all the people who need it. That would be lovely, but it's not my place to do something like that. That would be like judging other people, and those are some of the things that I try to get away from the mindset of thinking. But it's good to talk about things out loud and
Mhm.
recognize some of the faults that we have and things that we need to work on and improve as individuals, because it's a scary time we're living in, dude.
Yeah.
I
Scary
mean,
time.
we talked about so much. I mean, I know that we could just keep going on, but I do want to continue to try to do stuff like this with you more frequently. I know that you've been collaborating with Hashoshi, and I want to do some stuff with him. I'd like to do like more fireside chats, kind of roundtable discussions with a bunch of us different content creators.
Yeah.
Talk about a subject, like just pick a subject like we did today. Talk about how many people are unemployed and ways that we can help each other without government.
Yeah.
Um,
Do it.
so I think the idea of doing something like that, it helps us to build community. I think the dialogue, because we talked about what we want to talk about, we didn't say what we were going to say, and a lot of the stuff that this conversation is so valuable that I think to just have like recording these things is so much so much information that people can take from these type of conversations, which is why I would like to see more of these.
Yeah. Well, we will do more for sure. And that's a wrap. I think that's good. We covered everything we wanted to cover the best that we could. But
Yeah.
thanks so much for the collab, Rice, and we'll do it again.
Yeah, it was great, dude.
That's it for my interview with Rice Crypto. One of the fun things about me and Rice is that he lives in North Carolina and I'm from North Carolina, which is a fun little common bond there. And that is it for this episode. If you guys like it and you guys like Rice Crypto, definitely check his channel out. Smash a like on this video. YouTube loves that like button, so destroy that like button. And I will see you guys on the next episode of Hack Crypto.